G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of Hooked on Sport. Thank you so much for joining us. We are doing it thanks to the Royal South Australian Yacht Squadron and their wonderful team down there. My only rival, their caterers. What you do, you get online at the Squadron website, you put in Hooked in the gift card section when you make your online restaurant booking, and you get 10% off your final bill. So we do this show thanks to them, and I'm lucky enough to do it with Sophie Hilditch, who brings all of her expertise and insight. Soph, hello, it's late on a Thursday night. Are you going to tee it up tomorrow by any chance? I know you're a bit of a Friday specialist.
I am going to tee it up. It's going to be my last round as a 29-year-old Hooky. It's quite sad, actually.
I don't know if it's sad, is it? You know, birthdays are, you can't fight them. You're going to have to deal with it.
No, I'm like Rachel from Friends, Hooky. I'm just going to pretend like it's not happening.
Well, many happy returns for Saturday. We don't need to formalise it with a number, but you are having a birthday. It is a bit of a milestone, and I hope you enjoy it. You're very well looked after with gifts and the like. So we've decided to segregate our one long episode into two short ones, and I think the one we made last night was actually probably a bit longer than even what we'd planned just on the local stuff. But let's cut to the chase with international golf. It has been a remarkable week. We're going to get to LIV very shortly because we do need to break that down. But first of all, if you could just tell me what happened in the opening week of the PGA Tour playoffs, which was the FedEx St Jude Classic.
Well, Scotty Scheffler won by 8 shots. That's really all that happened. It was a bit of a snooze fest. It did look a little bit interesting for a second there on the par 5, the third hole. He hit a greenside bunker straight into a sprinkler head and bounced off into the water. That made his, bit tough. Rub of the green.
Because it was a great bunker shot as well. It was an absolute pure bunker shot in the water.
It was going to be a tap-in birdie for sure. Yeah. And just extend his lead, but instead his lead got cut to only 1 shot over Sanjay In. But it was short-lived, Hooky. He then had 2 consecutive birdies in a row, and it really did just turn into a bit of a snooze fest. I mean, Scotty has just been the definition of consistency throughout this entire season. But interestingly, his last win was actually just under 7 months ago, which I found quite interesting. It feels like he should be winning because he's always on the leaderboard and always sitting around the top 10. And even when you think he's out of it, he always has that backdoor top 10. And this was probably the first time in a while that Scotty Scheffler's really been on that hunt, and it was just like no one can catch him. And his good mate Sam Burns said it. He said, "Doesn't matter what kind of round I had today, Scotty Scheffler was always going to etch his name on that trophy," and it's exactly what Scotty did.
Just before you get off Scotty, because I'll just ask you about this. So Aaron Rai, Ryan Fox, Rory McIlroy, and I know you've got some notes here about McIlroy, so we'll focus more on him a little bit later. 3 of the 4 major winners, all in the bottom 6 or 7 of this tournament, but are all going to make it into the top 50 for the second week, the BMW, which comes up. Starts tomorrow morning. By the time that people are going to be listening to this, it'll be pretty much right on top of us. Wyndham Clark probably ruins my argument a little bit, but it just felt like Scotty was really determined to make a name for himself once again in these playoffs because he left the major season empty-handed.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that because his majors performances weren't probably what we'd expect from Scotty Scheffler, which is harsh. It's really harsh because he did have a good major season. But for someone like world number 1 and Scotty, particularly his season in 2025, which was just incredible and outstanding. I don't know what it was, 7 or 8 wins on the PGA Tour, and it was incredible. We really expected to see him hot like that again. And yes, we got a consistency and we got him performing pretty well, but everyone was kind of saying this is really his C game, maybe B game. And he's up there, but he's not winning anything. Yeah.
I did, that's just what stood out to me. Jordan Spieth was the only person to make the top 70 without a top 10 all year. Finished in a tie for 19th, I think, on the weekend. How did you assess his season?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, he's a 3 major champion, and honestly, Jordan Spieth was one of those players that I just loved watching. His short game is was incredible. I should say was. This is going back, 2015, 2016, when he was kind of unstoppable. Everyone thought it was the new Tiger Woods coming up and we were going to have an absolute golden child who'd be unstoppable. And for the last 6 years, we basically haven't seen a Jordan Spieth, and this has brought an end to his season. And I don't know, I have thoughts on Jordan Spieth because he's someone that I would think would get a lot of sponsorship entries, particularly with the PGA going down the path that it wants to go down, which is cutting down their schedule, making it harder for them to actually get into these events. And I feel like Jordan Spieth is at risk of someone we might not really see that much on the PGA Tour if he doesn't really get his stuff together anytime soon.
Yeah, well, he's 52 here, so he's obviously going to get starts in the signature events next year, but he has got a lot of sponsor exemptions into the signature events, and that's 3 points, all no-cut events. You've got far smaller fields to deal with. They're obviously talented fields. So, yeah, he's going to be a watch in 2027 for sure, because if they are talking about cutting out sponsor exemptions in 2028, that's going to be really difficult for the PGA Tour because Spieth does create eyeballs. Here we are talking about the bloke who's finished 52nd for the year, and he's one of our talking points. So can the tournaments or the PGA Tour in conjunction with the tournaments get off the teat of these sorts of guys that they want to play even if they're not technically eligible to be there? I think that'll be a great watch next year, Soph, because if they're true to their word, the way he's going to struggle to get starts in the Championship Series in 2028. And we'll all be poorer for that, won't we? The only people who won't be poorer for it are the people who are getting in on merit, and that's probably fair enough as well. Rory McIlroy, what did you make of it? Because I think he spent less time practicing than me in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's just an absolute disappointment, hasn't he been? He hasn't basically picked up a club in 4 weeks, but he has been clubbing from the looks of things. He wasn't scared to have the camera pointed at him when he was at, I want to say it's a nightclub or some sort of bar, and having a great time only about a week ago. But honestly, his press conference just made me a bit upset and a bit worried. It's almost like he completed the Grand Slam. He got another Masters this year, and he just doesn't really care. And he said that almost basically when the Open was on. He was saying he doesn't really care about the PGA and it's not a priority. I think by the end, he's on track to only have played 14 PGA events, which is less than their minimum requirement of 15. And he's then openly said, well, the PGA is looking at cutting down anyways, and I'm probably going to be playing the PGA next year, so why does it matter that I only played 14? But then you've got the players like the Scotty Schefflers, the Victor Hovlands, the Matt Fitzpatricks, who even that would apply to them, but they're still out there and playing.
Yeah, he is definitely at a stage of his life where he's not going to be a part-time golfer, but he's certainly only going to focus on the 4 majors. And whatever the PGA Tour does, I think they're going to struggle to get a really serious Rory McIlroy. It's just not going to motivate him. He's obviously going to get himself up for the Masters, for the Open, for the US Open and the PGA and everything else. I think, maybe the players as well, he'll be keen to have a genuine crack at. But it's the legacy events that he's worried about. And the FedEx Cup the FedEx is leaving as a sponsor in 2027, we expect. So it'll be, we're talking about Spieth as being something to watch, but he will be a really interesting conundrum as the PGA Tour tries to become this bigger footprint with more of the top players playing against each other more often. And if Rory's just going to thumb his nose at it, that will be very, very difficult for Roll Up to, sell the concept to all of the sponsors that he wants to be throwing in 30, 40 million a tournament. I can't wait to see how all of that plays out. What do you make of the playoffs as a general concept?
Get that excited about the playoffs because of the format of it all, if that makes sense. Like, it just kind of feels a bit hum-ha. You almost feel like you already know who the winner will most likely be based on the format. What are your thoughts?
I've got 2 issues with it. And they maybe they're similar, maybe they're not. But so the top 70 got into FedEx St. Jude, top 50 go to the BMW, which will start in the morning. How many people do you think got shipped out and therefore got shipped in on that number 50 bubble?
I'm not
Any idea?
Sure. No idea.
1.
Oh.
Keith Mitchell dropped out and Sung Jae Im, who had a very, very good week, jumped in.
Yep.
And then I think as well, Rory McIlroy, and you can understand why he wasn't too bothered about really turning up to play this week. But he started the week he started the week 12th on the FedEx Cup, played as bad as he could have possibly played, finished fourth last, and he fell all the way to 13th in the FedEx Cup. So the lack of volatility in what are supposed to be playoffs suggests to me, why do they even bother playing this event anyway? One guy in, one guy out. And the guy who was almost dead freaking last for much of the week and started the week at number 12, dropped all the way to number 13. So there's almost no point playing the event if you're not going to have some volatility. If 12 and then finishing 66 out of 70 doesn't drop you down to about 30, 35, I don't understand what the purpose of the event is. So it strikes me that it looks more like a reason to give these players more money rather than a legitimate playoff.
Yeah, I think Rory said he had to be in the top 30 and then he was guaranteed a spot the next week. So he wasn't fussed about it at all. And he openly said that because he was like, I'm coming 12th. So it doesn't matter what I place. I'm in. And I think anyone within the top 30, he was saying, was in the same boat as well. You would guaranteed to get in. And that makes sense with how many people were dropping down. So I don't know. I feel like this week was kind of a waste of time. I didn't pay a whole heap of attention to it. If I'm being honest, I wasn't that interested in it. And I feel like I already know he's kind of going to be around the mark and winning, and there's only 50 players. It just doesn't interest me as much, Hooky.
Well, maybe we'll review at the end of the BMW and see who makes it through to the Tour Championship. But yeah, underwhelming for me. A very, very flat week on the PGA Tour, and it's the first week of the playoffs. I mean, imagine the AFL finals. Imagine having a football club that goes, yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. We're not even going to train because it doesn't matter what we do this week. We could lose by 15 goals and we don't lose our spot in the playoffs. So I don't know. That doesn't quite make a lot of sense to me. Tell me, in other news, what happened in the LPGA Standard Portland Classic?
It was Gino Tidical who won her third LPGA victory of the year with a final round 64. 5 consecutive birdies on the front 9, which is unbelievable. We all know Gino loves a birdie fest. She's yet to have a major. She's not great on firm and fast greens. She's not great, to be honest, on any kind of tough course. But when it comes to a birdie fest, she's absolutely impeccable. This is Gino's 10th LPGA win, but without a major. She's an interesting one, Hooky. I want to compare her to Tommy Fleetwood, but I can't because Tommy Fleetwood only has one PGA win, and that was kind of the monkey on his back, but he also still doesn't have a major. But Gino's just interesting. Like, she wins all these LPGA events when they're bomb and gouge and, putting isn't really a priority, and she's always in the mix. But as soon as it comes to majors, I'm never betting on Gino. And
Go on, sorry.
I don't know what I think of her career. Like, obviously I would love 10 LPGA wins. God, I'd love to be an LPGA player full stop. But 10 LPGA wins versus one major, I'd prefer to be that player with the one major.
I did get a chuckle. I can't remember who said it, but I did hear someone say that major season must be over on the women's tour because Gino's back winning again, which is probably a little bit tough. But look, it'll be an unfulfilled career until she wins a major. I mean, there's 5 of them on the women's tour, for goodness sake. And look, she's run close a couple of times. So you suspect that she's going to pinch one of them. But until she does, it will be an unfulfilled career. That is absolutely for sure. Anything else out of the women's tour?
Well, we've got the Solheim Cup coming up pretty soon.
Yes.
In about 3 weeks' time. So I know the Europeans have selected their side, and I'm pretty sure the USA have now also selected their teams. I'm not going to run through the teams because, Hooky, we are definitely going to have a Solheim podcast because I am so excited for it. I'm more excited than what I was when it was Ryder Cup, which I know some people were thinking that can't be possible because I was on a girls' trip for the Ryder Cup, and they could hear me listening to Foxtel and the golf commentation from my separate room because they had to give me a separate room, and I made myself so sick. I don't know if you remember that, but so sick for about 3 weeks because I was either partying or watching the Ryder Cup, and I have a feeling Solheim Cup is going to be absolutely no different.
We will get to that. Soph, could I just touch very quickly on what happened at the DP World Tour last week? It was the Danish Championship. I really enjoyed this. It was a place called Great Northern. Now, I don't know if our friends in the architecture world are going to say that this is an all-time great course, but gee, I thought it was absolutely perfect for a closing stretch for a professional event. Let me just take you through the last 4 holes. The 15th is a par 4 with water absolutely everywhere. It runs all the way down the left and then it cuts in front of the green. So it's a really exacting 2 strokes. The 16th is a short drivable par 4 and the tees were up on the Sunday. The 17th is a very long par 5 where there's no water. And then on the 18th, there is it's a par 3, which is an unusual way to finish, almost an island green. So I had this real TPC Sawgrass feel about it. And I thought it was a great watch, even though I imagine there'll be some architecture people who didn't think much of it. It was won by Jeff Winter, a Danish local, and it was a wild final round. So if there are 8 different leaders across the day, this was a 3-shot victory, and so you think I was probably pretty straightforward, but it was just absolutely things happening everywhere. So on the 17th, Rasmus Højgaard, so the local who was absolutely the favourite, hit average drive, poor approach with his second into the par 5, and then makes this outrageous 50-yard chip, makes that for eagle. And so suddenly he's in a tie for the lead with Winter, who's on the hole behind, playing this short tees up par 4 16th. He drives it onto the green, which was a great shot, and I think he's going to make birdie from there. He's about 30, 35 feet away and drains this remarkable putt for eagle. So in the space of about 5 minutes, we've seen dueling eagles, which just made for the most thrilling finish. Rasmus Højgaard then put it on the green in this water everywhere par 3, pretty much an island green, but then somehow managed to 3-putt from there, and the tournament was Jeff Winters. So pretty amazing story. He moves up 66 places to go into the 31st place in the race to Dubai. And he's a really interesting story. He was a groundsman who didn't play golf even as a teenager, and now here he is. He would be mid-late 30s, I reckon, and now he's for the first time a DP World Tour winner. So it was a really, really cool story, Soph, and he's almost certain to go on right through to the end of the year and play in Dubai in the Tour Championship. So one to watch. Hey, did you see any of the US Amateur at Merion?
I've watched a lot of reels from the USAM on my Instagram. It was kind of nonstop and very entertaining. They actually do really good reels. You can watch
all
the playoff holes and a lot of hole by holes, or it's awesome. So if you have a chance for our listeners, just go straight on to the USAM Instagram page because you can really get a feel for the tournament.
Yeah, it's the USGA page, and they did a wonderful job of it. Englishman Jack Whaley has won. He defeated American Jay Leng 4-3 in the final. He had his dad on the bag, Soph, so it was a really emotional moment for them. And as someone whose own father will often be pushing the bag for you, I'm sure you could understand the emotions of all of that. It was interesting to see Merion as a golf course. It's only 6,900 yards, and all of these young kids are driving at 350 yards. So there was a lot of issues around the way the course was set up. That was a massive challenge, but I got to say it was a great watch. And Merion held up, but there is going to be issues going forward. They're talking about playing, US Opens there in the next 5 to 10 years, and it's a remarkably short piece of course for how far those guys ship the ball these days. So it is probably time that we just knuckle down and start to think about what is going on with the LIV Golf Tour. Since we last spoke, there has been all sorts of news break, most notably that the team's championship has been sort of merged into the event that's going to start this week in Indianapolis, which was supposed to be the last of the singles tournaments. We've had stories of vendors not being paid. We've had stories of the every shot providers on their app that are suing LIV. There were situations where everyone knew this tournament wasn't going ahead, the LIV Michigan Teams Championship final, but they were still selling tickets for it. They've subsequently cancelled the concert And I'm sure there are people in Indianapolis who have bought tickets specifically for the concert. They're saying that now that people will get refunds for if they've bought tickets in LIV Michigan. As we've said, there's lawsuits coming everywhere. There is all sorts of suggestions around whether Jon Rahm is going to try and work out a way of getting out of his clause. There's bankruptcy that looks like it's coming. Having said all of that, where do your first thoughts take you with LIV Golf? What are you expecting to see in the coming weeks and perhaps the coming month or two?
Well, I'm not seeing LIV Golf in South Australia, unfortunately.
Okay, right.
2027.
You don't think we'll see it here next year?
I'm jumping
Why is that?
I just, it's to be fair, Hooky, it's really hard to tell because media reports are all over the place.
Yep.
It's not like we have a head like the PGA does saying everything and it's to the books and you kind of know exactly where the PGA is heading and it's so open, but we don't get that. So it's probably a bit jumping the gun to say that I don't think it's going to be there in 2027, but it looks very grim. If it is here, it's going to look incredibly different. I think Jon Rahm's gone by the end of the year. There's already so many LIV players whose managers are talking to the PGA, trying to get their players back in. You spoke about vendors not getting paid. Well, players from last tournament for LIV haven't got their earnings yet. I mean, LIV just looks so much. It's so grim. It's so grim. They obviously are running out of money. We're listening to Scott O'Neill, who's seeking about $250 million US. He keeps talking about how he is an investor, but there's no pen to paper yet, Hooky. It's something that we have to keep on saying. There is no one who's wanting to take this up and is committed enough to actually sign a contract and say, yes, I'm in. And I mean, all the lawsuits coming at them, that's expensive, Hooky. The amount of lawsuits that they're getting for the amount of vendors that haven't been paid, I'm just worried and I just don't know whether or not they have the pockets to keep this going.
The reputational damage, I think, is getting beyond what is sustainable now. So it appears for everything that they're making sure that they're appeasing the players and signing enormous checks for the players at the expense of hardworking working class people. And I think that's a really difficult sell for the organisation if they're trying to go forward with the support of the general public, if that's sort of like the underlying message. And then where my thoughts are drawn to now, Soph, is what do you do if you're Jeff Brennan and Brett Lewis as the two bosses, if you like, of the Kooyonga Golf Club? This is a prestigious club with a remarkable reputation. And do you want to be sullied by being involved with LIV? I suspect. So we know that late last month, LIV asked Kooyonga to withhold sending over a payment of what's believed to have been $500,000 as the first of an instalment payment to host LIV next year. They've pushed that to September. Now, I'm doing the maths here. Scott O'Neill, who's the head of LIV, must have known full well that that payment of September was only ever going to be made after they've already gone bankrupt. I can't see $1 of that check making its way to Kooyonga. They're going to try and re-sign it on subsequent terms. And I just feel like Kooyonga and its reputation that it has, which is an esteemed place in South Australian society, let alone Australian golf, I just wonder how much longer they're going to be prepared to stay aligned to LIV, and I suspect that might end pretty sharply. And then there's a super problem in South Australia if LIV want to come here and the South Australian government hold a contract till the end of 2031. But who's seriously going to host LIV here next year when they just don't have a reputation for honouring what arrangements they had in place? And I understand there's a challenge around the fact that this is PIF that pulled out and it's not strictly speaking LIV, but there has been some curious ways they've gone about their business in the last few weeks that I think would make it very, very difficult, almost embarrassing for players to stick around, knowing that the players are getting their full lug of cash when it's vendors and working class people who are being cut out and having to sue to try and get their just funds. And, then when bankruptcy and all of these other challenges come about, I think it's going to be really difficult for an esteemed club like Kooyonga to stay the course.
Well, I don't think they want to be associated as well. Imagine all the vendors coming to Kooyonga Golf Club and potentially not getting paid at the end of it. I mean, what vendor is actually going to even want to sign on to something like that? If you do your research, start looking up LIV Golf and see what's happened in the past. Do vendors want to take that risk? I wouldn't. If I owned a food truck or whatever it was, I probably wouldn't want to be associated with LIV.
I think the other issue that I've got, Soph, is integrity of competition is really important, even when you're a bit of a startup. They were advertising all the way along that the team championship was their grand final, that this was what meant more than anything else. This was the underlying crux of team golf. And then just to decide, well, we're actually going to cancel that event and merge it into a different event under completely different terms to the way it was supposed to be originally played. I mean, anyone of the general public can see through that and say, well, you're not a serious competition if that's the way you're going about it. And I get that they had to play, if they only could play one, they had to play this individual tournament rather than the teams tournament, because all of the players are going to want to be able to get hold of OWGR points. And when they go to match play the following week, if that's, because that was the format for the teams championship, was going to be match play at Michigan, and they wouldn't have got OGR points for that particular event. So I understand if they had a choice of one, the players are going to want the points, and they've been able to merge enough cash that it's still a remarkably lucrative tournament. But I just still think that underlines the fact that these players are still got their hand out and getting their full lug when, you know, there are smaller people who are missing out. And I think LIV will struggle with the reputational damage on that for some time to come.
Yeah, I agree, Hooky.
Why don't we wrap it up there? Always a good chat, mate. We will keep our eye on what is going on, not just on the US tour, but certainly with LIV as well, because there's undoubtedly going to be more and more announcements as we go forward, and all of them are going to affect where it plays out in South Australia. But an amazing week in golf. Plenty more to talk about. Look forward to doing it all with you again next week. Play well tomorrow. Say hi to your mum for me, and have a great birthday over the weekend.
Will do. Thanks, Hooky.
See you soon.